It is 1756. The Empire of Great Britain is on the brink of losing its most lucrative colony, North America. Oh yeah, and its empire. To understand what happened in 1756, we have to understand the years leading up to the 7 Years' War and the French and Indian War, as the war in America was called. In the early 1750s, French expansion into the Ohio River Valley repeatedly brought France to armed conflict with British colonies. In October 1753, a 21-year-old major named George Washington, he's not famous at all, left Williamsburg on behalf of Virginia Lieutenant Governor Robert Dinwiddie. Washington was to deliver a message from the governor demanding that the French leave the area and halt the harassment of British traders in the area. On December 11, 1753, amidst a raging snowstorm, Washington arrived and was politely accepted into the company of the French by Captain Jacques Lagardois de Saint-Pierre at Fort Le Boeuf. After reviewing Dinwiddie's letter, Lagardois de Saint-Pierre calmly wrote a reply stating the French king's claim to the Ohio River Valley is incontestable. Responding to the defiant French, Lieutenant Governor Dinwiddie ordered the newly promoted Lieutenant Colonel George Washington and approximately 160 Virginia militia to return to the Ohio Valley in March of 1754. Dinwiddie told Washington to act on the defensive, but also clearly empowered Washington to make prisoners of or kill all those who resisted British control of the region. So basically, Governor Dinwiddie said, oh, it's okay to kill people, take them prisoner and everything, that's fine. At the same time as Washington and his men came back to the Ohio River Valley, a French contingent of 35 men, with the task of trying to make the British leave the area, started to make a camp close to Washington's force at Great Meadows in what is now Pennsylvania. Washington's force quickly overwhelmed the surprised French force and killed 13 soldiers and captured another 21. Only one man escaped. Both sides claimed that the other fired first, but the only thing both the French and the British agreed on was that this small skirmish in the American wilderness caused the biggest war the world had ever seen.
In May of 1756,
Britain declared war on France. European countries started to flock to either side of the war, Britain, Hanover, and Prussia on one side, and France, Sweden, Russia, Spain, and Austria on the other. Since this war would turn into a conflict on 3 continents, some historians consider this to be the First World War. In North America, where the majority of the fighting happened in the first year, the French, led by a brilliant young general, Marquis de Montcalm, and their broad network of Native American allies, won many of the battles. In 1757, the Secretary of State William Pitt, the Sr., came into office. He immediately realized the importance of this war and steadily started to send troops to America and the other British colonies. In 1756, the ruler or Nawab Bengal, a principality in India, captured the city of Calcutta. He took 146 prisoners and locked them in a cramped cell overnight. They had no water and only little ventilation. The next day, only 23 of the 146 men survived to tell the tale of the Black Hole of Calcutta. Outraged by this horrific incident, the British counterattacked. Robert Clive, a young East India Company clerk, met with the commander of the Nawab's army, Mir Jafar, and convinced him to switch sides. At the Battle of Plassey, Clive led the British army and defeated the much larger Bengalese army, which was supported by the French. This victory gave the British East India Company complete control of Bengal and weakened the French holds in the area.
Back in America, Pitt sent 2 new leaders to the front, Lord Jeffrey Amherst and Brigadier General James Wolfe. In 1758, in a massive attack, the British took the fortress of Louisbourg on Cape Breton Island. Other French started to fall, and the British took Fort Duquesne in the Ohio Valley. It was renamed after Prime Minister Pitt and would later become the site of the city of Pittsburgh. The year after that, an Irish-born fur trader named William Johnson led a band of Iroquois to capture Fort Niagara on Lake Ontario. Even after all of these victories, the biggest prize still lay ahead, the fortress city of Quebec. The city sat on cliffs 200 feet above the St. Lawrence River. General Wolfe positioned his force of 9,000 men and several ships under the cliffs. For many months he shelled the city with his artillery, all the while looking up for a path up the cliffs. Finally, he found a narrow path west of the city. He sent more than 4,000 men up the cliffs to the field outside the city, the Plains of Abraham, or all named after Abraham or the farmer who owned those plains. Montcalm had been hiding his army behind the city walls, trying to wait the British out till winter, but had to come out of the fortress and face the British. The British waited, not firing, as the French charged. At 100 yards, the French opened fire, but the British held their ground until finally, when the French were a mere 40 yards away, they opened fire, and the French fell under an onslaught of bayonets and musket balls. The battle was over in only a few minutes. In the middle of the battle, Wolfe died saying, "God be praised, I will die in peace." Montcalm too died of his wounds, his last words being, "So much better, I will not see the fall of Quebec." 4 days later, Quebec surrendered to the British. The next year, Montreal surrendered, and with it, the French claim to America. Back over in India, the British were pouring men into the battles. In 1761, the British captured Pondicherry. Then, in 1763, the war ended with the Treaty of Paris, taking away French hold in India and America. Immediately after the war, the British imposed many taxes on the American colonies and carried out many heart-wrenching escapades, the effects of which we will talk about in the next episode.